Okay, so Faye, Ni hao, thank you for joining the panel today. So this is a panel dedicated to um, each of our journeys in terms of the return on investment for machine translation. As some of you know, I like to start our panels with greetings extensive to all time zones. But I feel that this might be a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening for some of us, but definitely not for all. I think we're all connected, and our industry, our localization industry, is all about building bridges between people, communities, and cultures. And I think we can all agree that all of this is currently under threat. We are one world, and we should behave accordingly. So our thoughts and support are with those who are suffering directly, and their families who have been affected by the overwhelmingly shocking events that unfolded over the last couple of weeks. I think these are dire times filled with uncertainty, but I'm sure that we all agree, myself, the panelists, and all other Lock from Home contributors and audience that is watching and listening to us, in wishing an immediate and peaceful resolution for the conflict that has been upon all of us. Before we start our panel discussion and introductions, let me congratulate Kate and the Lock from Home team once again. I know how hard you guys worked to put this event together, but also I would like to praise the way you stood up for what you believe, and by ultimately making the right choice for the event and its broad community and legion of followers. I think we also believe that depriving our community of knowledge that ultimately facilitates global communication means also allowing that this conflict is taking more than what it should already. Let me also share a word thanking today's panelists and their presence for them having accepted the challenge. They're not just great localization panelists, highly knowledgeable, but also good people, the kind that our industry definitely needs. Now, after this brief intro, and without further ado, let me quickly introduce myself, the panelists, and the topic. My name is Rodrigo, Rodrigo Cristina. I'm based out of the UK, and I work and represent Steelworks, an exciting global multilingual vendor with a very ambitious growth project, a unique value proposition, and a clear focus on localization outcome, not just on delivery. Let me now introduce our incredible panelists. I will start, in no particular order, by introducing Faye, which is a fantastic addition to the panel. Faye is RS Components Localization Manager. She's also based out of the UK. She's passionate about languages and localization technology and brings a wealth of experience in maximizing the return of applying that particular language technology to different business scenarios. She has mastered the art of transforming those technological benefits into tangible operational and commercial improvements. She enjoys working with people across cultures. Well, there's no surprise there, and has an interest in languages and how they affect the way people think and behave. Out of a curiosity note, Faye's hidden superpower is that she can measure people's heights within 2 centimeters deviation just by looking at them. Unfortunately, this incredible skill is still not available within the imperial system, but Faye is definitely working on it, so expect some updates soon. We're super excited to have you here, Faye, and know more about your journey. Now, time for Mihal's introduction. He's based out of Paris. He's based in Paris, the city of lights and the beautiful Eiffel Tower. And he heads PayPal's localization technology in its world-ready team. In his previous roles on the client side, Mihao managed VMware's localization operations for Asia Pacific and Japan, based out of Singapore, and led enterprise product localization engineering, quality assurance, and tool development teams at Symantec in Poland. He also held various positions with major language service providers. Welcome, Mihao. Great to have you here. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts and expertise about machine translation and its impact. Now, let me try to briefly introduce this session's topic. I guess that all of us can agree with the claim that now more than ever, content is being created at an unbelievable pace. There are simply not enough linguists to process all the data that is being produced. This is a consequence of I believe many factors, but irreversible changes of the way we live in our lifestyle, the way we interact with each other, and also and very importantly, the way we buy. Probably fueled by the pandemic as well, and those irreversible and profound lifestyle changes, we are shopping online more than ever, and there's a huge need to create and develop content to support this particular process, this new way of buying. A big chunk of this content needs to be made available globally and fast, sometimes even instantly. And MT plays a pivotal role in achieving this objective. This overall content explosion has led to an increasing number of different use cases for machine translation deployment, from user-generated content, like things that we see almost every day, consumer reviews, to real-time multilingual customer supports, like multilingual chatbots. That's another incredible, useful use case for machine translation. For these reasons, and for being such an important component of many global localization programs, it's important to make sure that we can estimate beforehand the impact of rolling out machine translation. To this effect, I would like just to show you very briefly a model, but I would like to introduce that model as well. And this model's objective is to estimate return on investment upfront of deploying machine translation. I feel that unlike in other industries, in our industry in particular, in localization, we're traditionally not very good at estimating or measuring the impact of what we do, with some exceptions, of course. But if we think about it, it's really never been in a localization manager's job description. It's just not there. And if you read through a lot of them, this is a component that is many times not mentioned or forgotten by the hiring parties. And this needs to change. I think for the sake of who we are as an industry, and to be able to market ourselves in the same language as every other industry, the language that really matters, the language of value. And a value-driven approach is focused on the outcome, on the positive impact that localization has in our customers and communities, not just on the delivery of the services. So with this in mind, we need to find ways of estimating before the projects start or the programs start, and measuring upon completion of these projects or programs, the positive impact and the return on investment of what we deliver to our customers. So it was pretty much with this in mind that a couple of years ago, I started looking at creating a model that estimates and quantifies the return on investment of a global enterprise machine translation program. I took a great interest on machine translation deployment because I feel that it's relatively easier to quantify than other localization activities. I decided to approach it from an investment valuation perspective and applied a financial model called, which is very known and very used, called the net present value. So at T-Rex, for example, every time we think or we take a look or we're confronted with the possibility of deploying machine translation at program level, we tend to perform an initial study of the overall impact, of the financial impact that this particular technology deployment will have. So let me share a couple of slides on an alternative or a way to estimate machine translation return on investment before we actually deploy machine translation, and without taking too much of a deep dive into the technical aspects of the model. So I'll start by quickly sharing my screen if I can. Okay. Now, Pei and Mihao, can you see what I'm projecting?
No, not yet, no.
How about now?
Nope.
Hold on.
Yes, it's coming up now. Yes, we can see it.
Yeah, can see that.
So yeah, this is going to be a very simple, just needs to, this definitely went a lot smoother than the last time. So this is definitely an improvement. So this was, as I mentioned, a consequence of looking at least up front, looking at a way of showing both our customers and that our customers would show their own line managers or budget holders what would be the positive impact of deploying machine translation or post-editing machine translation into their localization workflows. So the model has three components, and the first one is, which is depicted there as I0, that's initial investment or the cost of deploying machine translation into a particular localization workflow or program, I would say. Not, deploying to a particular localization workflow depends on the actual use case. But the idea is that we, as enterprise localization program holders, we need to spend money in a number of things in order to make our localization program ready to receive the benefits of or harvest the benefits of machine translation. So that's initial cost, and that's something that we need to incur to deploy machine translation. The second component is the cash flow, and the cash flow is composed of two subcomponents: the revenues and savings that this particular machine translation program will generate, and this can be anything from savings in rates through post-editing due to the increase of productivity of the translators, and also the fact that as a company, the products and services of that particular company that's using machine translation are faster in the marketplace. So you basically, you earn weeks, days, months of sales by having your products and services faster in the marketplace. And then the last, which is sort of the most financial component or subcomponent of the model, has to do with the fact that we've introduced, rather than doing an arithmetic operation between revenues and costs, we've introduced also a time factor. So basically, what this model does, and don't get too alarmed with the formula. It's a relatively simple formula when you start adding the numbers. The third factor, which is the discount factor, is basically what allows us to introduce time and the appreciation or depreciation of money that happens across time. The decision criteria is mega simple. If this sum between revenues generated across time and discounted to moment zero is higher than the initial investment that you have to make, then it's pretty simple. You decide to invest in machine translation. So this is what the impact in time looks like. You can see that there, in this particular case, because this analyzes 4 distinct periods in time where cash flows occur. So the moment zero, which is today, imagine today that you would have to invest, where you would have to invest your hard-earned money, especially when it comes to PayPal and RS components, hard-earned money in MT. You would have to make the decision based on the money that you would be spending today and how much you would save and how much would machine translation contribute over the next 3 years to increase your top line and ultimately your bottom line. And one thing that's very, very important, so that's the actual time component of the model, but it's also something very important that we all have almost subjectively this notion about how different money is today and tomorrow. One pound, €1 today is different from £1 and €1 tomorrow. So what this part of or component of the model introduces is the actual appreciation or depreciation of money throughout time, because we are comparing cash flows generated in different moments in time. So without getting too complicated, but it's very, very simple. So how does this work? And this is like, wow. Hope I haven't taken too much time in the technical part of it. So how does this work applied to machine translation? You can see the costs, the I0 that represent the costs that you would typically incur to deploy machine translation. So imagine that that you decide to go for a mainstream machine translation solution that's out there. I won't name names, but there is an annual license associated to it. It's an annual license fee associated to it. There might be hosting costs. There might be additional software deployment costs specific to your own localization operation. There might be the need to clean, optimize your linguistic assets that will serve as basis for customizing machine translation engines. This includes also the development of the customized machine translation engines, testing. I mean, this is just a list that is definitely not pretending or definitely not aiming to get, a full extensive, because there are plenty of other components that you add there. But so this is the cost side of the model. The good part, the meaty part of the model is the cash flow part. And the cash flow includes, as I mentioned earlier, 2 components. The percentage machine translation savings effect, and that's boom, almost instant, because you negotiate the rates or the rate discounts based on the expected productivity of the linguists or the increase of that productivity of the linguists, but also that very tangible effect of having your products and services in the marketplace a lot sooner than they would be. But this cash flow component also has what we call running costs. So that license, that annual license fee, that is a recurrent annual license fee that occurs every year. I mean, imagine that you're so happy because it's been so successful that you decide to include the retraining of existing languages or add specific languages. The hosting is also recurrent. So you have basically savings that are generated by applying machine translation to your localizable content, but you also have running costs. So all of this represents the cash flow. And then again, you have the discount factor, which also represents the return rate of the best available option. So this introduces time, but this particular discount factor has, let's say, different features. It introduces time. This introduces time but it also introduces the concept of what would you do with that money, alternatively, if you didn't apply it in machine translation. So this is a very simple, let's say, then it becomes arithmetic. It will be the returns generated by post-editing machine translation program itself minus the costs. So I will now stop sharing my screen. This concludes the post-editing machine translation model evaluation. There will be, room for questions. I'm sure that Smartcat will promote. But now we are back into the panel, and now that we have sort of a way of estimating the impact of MT deployment, let's hear our panelists, the true stars of the show, Faye and Nihal, talking about their own individual journeys towards return on investment on their own machine translation programs. So without any particular order, again, I will start by Faye. Faye, the floor is totally yours.
Without any particular order, isn't it? So yeah, glad to be joining this panel, and thank you, Kate, Log from Home, and Rodrigo for inviting me. And also just want to reiterate what Rodrigo shared in the beginning. Just fully support the decision from Law from Home, and to show that we're standing with the people who are in this turbulent time, and our thoughts are with them and their families, and hope everybody is staying safe and well during this period of time. So back on the machine translation topic, so at RS Components, we certainly are still in the journey of exploring about machine translation, the best use cases, and understanding the impact that machine translation has brought to us and will be bringing to us. So just kind of zoom out a little bit in terms of the timeline. We started, as other, companies would have anyway, with the human translations. That was before the age of machine or any machine translation engine was developed to a point that can be a boost up for human proficiency. So started on the human translation, and we got good quality translated content, to be presented to our local customers, which has been great. However, on the other hand, the cost has been becoming a problem to our financial guys, as any organization would have anyway during this time. And then it will be coming into this age of machine translation. We were very excited about what machine translation can bring in terms of the the cost efficiency, we spend a lot of time understanding the packages, the subscriptions, how the machine translation will be able to benefit us as a company and to our customers as well. And then went to kind of the other end of this journey in terms of machine translation of our product information. And then gradually we have realized that it is not all on the positive side. It is not just about money saving. It's not just about the time to market as well. It is also about customer experience. It is also about the accuracy of the product information. It's about how our customers are able to understand us, particularly as a very strong customer focused business. So we have found some issues in the machine translation in terms of quality. I mean, I'm not a French speaker, but if I see something like "se castra es mercury," I would understand with my broken French something is mercury. But when we looked back into the source content, we realized it's actually saying this frame is mercury free. So apparently there are limitations for the machine translation at this stage without the full understanding of the context, or without taking the context into full consideration in their output, without being edited by human. And there are also the training material that we have fed into the machine translation, especially the source that might be more, and the algorithm as well, might be American-based English as compared to the British-based English. So in some languages, because RS Components, we sell safety trainers. Trainers was misunderstood, not the pair of shoes that you would want, but someone that is in the gym that is telling you what to do as a coach. So, you know, if you're kind of in this industry, you can understand these kind of foreseeable mistakes, inaccuracies that machine has brought to us. So this is where we find this is a good opportunity to reevaluate the balance between the cost saving, time saving, and the actual quality and the actual customer experience that we're providing to our local customers. So this is where we kind of start to understand, you know, what is machine translation post-editing can bring to us? What is the level of quality that we're requiring for our customers and for certain products, certain categories, and also, you know, with all these, you know, good quality linguistic database that we have, what is the boost to the customization of the machine engine? Whether we'll be able to find a partner that can, you know, support us in this journey as well. So yeah, it's really a lot of things has happened and will be happening, and you know, a lot of things that is going on. We are, you know, really proud to be in this journey of fully embracing machine translation and finding where is that sweet spot? Where is the actual balance that is, you know, having that cost in mind, time in mind, but also the, you know, the customer experience as a, you know, one of the most important commercial figures that we're looking at as a business. And in terms of, you know, return of investment, and I guess it's really important for any business to define what is the scope of work and what areas that you're looking at, what the type of content that you're translating. When we're talking about content, it's a very, very, very broad concept. You know, it could be user-generated content, which I believe Michal will be, you know, talking and sharing in a minute. It could be, you know, e-commerce transactional content. It should be marketing. It could be marketing content. It could be UX, UI content. So what are the content that we're looking at? And also, what is the return that we're looking at? So are you developing an app that you want to reach out to a global audience, or a platform that you want more users in a specific country, or, you know, multiple countries to be able to use? Or, you know, are we just wanted to, you know, share different opinions from different geographies between our users? So there are really a lot of varieties and variables that need to be defined in the first place before we actually take action into any machine translation strategy, or, you know, calculating any, you know, return of investment. So yeah, just kind of really broadly sharing kind of the journey within RS about machine translation and some lessons that we have learned and lessons to be learned as well. That's quickly from me. So I guess we'll hand over to Michal. Sorry, I've been keeping you silent for a long while.
It was super interesting to hear, actually, Faith. So I enjoyed sitting quietly and just listening. So thank you for having me in this meeting. I will not reply what Rodrigo and Faye have said. Thank you, Luck from Home and everyone for, like, you know, pulling together and supporting all the people who are now impacted by those terrible events. I'll just go straight into the PayPal side of the MT story, right? So it is important for me to stress one thing, right? So PayPal might be a sort of a technology platform, a digital payments company, whatever you call us. There are like multiple ways of looking at it, right? And we might be present in 200 markets and supporting merchants, consumers alike, etc., right? However, there is one important thing there. So yes, ROIs are important from the sort of NMT localization perspective, right? However, a really important part of what we do is actually about democratizing financial services, bringing them to people who might be underprivileged otherwise, right? Without PayPal. So this is also part of our quote unquote ROI, right? And we're very serious about it. It is like put into PayPal's mission. Some companies live by their mission, some don't. We definitely do. So whenever we look at ROI, we look at the money side. Yes. We look at the markets we expand to. Yes. But we also look at this inclusivity factor, and I'm serious about it. So, yeah. So I'll give you some little history, right? So our adventure with MT started around, I think, 2010. I say I think because I was not with the company at that stage. I worked somewhere else. And of course, back then, you had limited options, right? So we started with rules-based engines. And as most of us know, they were far from perfect in the terms of the outputs they gave. And they required a lot of customization, and the maintenance effort was big. It cost us a lot, right, to configure, to test it, to make it work. And of course, we weren't super satisfied, but we knew from the very beginning that there is like, this stuff will grow, this stuff will evolve, will get better and better. We should continue along that path, right? So around 2015, so 5 years later, we started embracing statistical engines. And these we found gave us significantly better quality and significantly lower customization costs, right? Because the whole idea of how you train them, how you set them up to work was very different, right? And, you know, both the quality side of it and the customization cost, you know, bringing it down was very important for us, because we really needed at that stage to expand our coverage from the like very core set of markets to go beyond, to like start living that you know, expansion, inclusivity mission. And you know, we kept on using these engines as they morphed over time into Neural, right? So now, essentially, we've been using them for the last couple of years. We're on Neural only. And the fact is, and I'll get to this in a second, that we basically use NeuralMt for virtually everything that we don't get good leverage from our translation memories from. And I'll like describe this now. What you need to understand, right, that our team provides localization for like the vast majority of both customer-facing content. We don't do marketing, for example, but most of the other stuff that you see is actually provided by us, by localization within the World Ready team. And it covers not only PayPal, but also our other brands, but I will not be mentioning them here. So that's the external, like customer-facing content, and we also have internal-facing stuff, right? And the ask there from our stakeholders, internal ones, is to provide just something that is quickly available, understandable. It doesn't have to be top quality, right? They just need to get a quick grasp of what's in the content that they are processing. So if you can imagine, it could be, for example, ad hoc, you know, technical localization about certain articles that our customer support agents are interested in. Definitely not something that you need to be like, to have picture perfect output for, just, you know, make it understandable. And because we deal both with this internal and external facing one, we have two different types of, or broadly speaking, two different types of engines and related processes, right? So for the customer facing content, which I like to call managed content, right? We translate everything that doesn't get a good translation memory leverage, right? Using customized NMT engines. That's important to understand, right? And then we post edit it. And I said everything, but it's virtually my favorite word, which doesn't tell you anything, but kind of conveys a notion, virtually everything, because there is some stuff we obviously cannot push through an NMT, like, you know, any sensitive stuff, any personal stuff, information, any like highly classified legal stuff either, right? But for everything else, we can apply it. Now, the other process is unmanaged content. It's the self-serve kind of raw NMT. We use generic engines, and these we use to support our internal stakeholders, like I've mentioned. And there is a custom-built portal that they can go into. We make sure that it works. We make sure that the engines are at their optimal performance, but we don't really get and manage that whole localization process there. Yeah, and maybe I'll move on to the strategic impact now that you understand what it is that we're dealing with, right? So first of all, and this kind of goes to what I've said about inclusivity and democratization, right? We really see MT as our key enabler for expanding our services, right? Either in the currently served markets, going deeper. Imagine, you have some markets where you have English speakers, great, you can reach out to them. But in these same markets, you have people who don't necessarily speak English, right? Even in very friendly, like English-friendly markets, right? We want to make sure that they feel comfortable using our products, right? So that's like current markets and also, of course, new markets, right? We want to go as broadly as possible, make sure everyone is understands what they're dealing with when they're using our products. And like I said, this is where we use custom MT, right? And because we use it, right, we are much quicker to the market. And that's a key sort of strategic consideration for us, right? How quickly we are able to get into the market. And if we can trust what we're putting out in front of the customers, right? So are we on brand? Are we aligned with the local market requirements? There are some legal conditions that we have to meet, right? There are some other specific requirements which we can actually have MT reflect in the custom engines that we use and sort of apply to our target content, to our localized content. Now I've mentioned quality, right? That we have more trust in it. There is an important note on this. So what we found over the years of using NMT now, right, is that typically our custom engines perform at least 10 to 20% better than the custom ones, than the generic ones, right? But we have also seen cases where that difference is much bigger. So one such example is Spanish for Spain, where we really see great stuff coming out of NMT. And in the case of some languages, our Blue scores, which for those of you who don't know a lot about MT, but I guess most of us do in this panel, right, or on this forum, Blue score is a quality measure of sorts, right, that compares MT output to potential human translated output, and these scores are well over 70% in a lot of cases. In some cases, almost reaching 80%. So this already gives us this confidence, right? And because we have our team set up the way it is, and because we have like world-class MT experts on board, right, who focus on both optimizing the engines and actually on having close collaboration with our human linguists who know PayPal content and who have worked on it for a long time, right? We are able to achieve this sort of NMT excellence that I'm talking about. And then from a more strategic perspective, because like we are happy with the quality, because we can do that stuff quicker and actually at a lower cost than, of course, lower cost than with human translators, right? Just human translators without NMT. What we can do is reinvest, right? So we save the money. We don't just like give it back to the big old bad corporation, right? To spend on something, right? We essentially can go and cover additional areas, additional languages, or more content, like I've said. So this is, again, from our ROI perspective, this is as crucial as getting money from the markets, right? And then generic MT. This is actually the overlooked area, right? But for us, it's huge, right? Just a reminder, I said this serves our internal customers, internal stakeholders, right? They can do their work with more confidence. They can serve the customers better. And the interesting thing, this area is where we see the greatest growth in our translation volumes over the last years, right? And we started small, allows you to be confident, with what you're dealing with, be it customer feedback or or like, technical content or whatever that gets produced all over the place, right? We now process 3 times as much volumes with generic engines than with our custom engines. And essentially with generic, we're now talking well over 100 million words a year. And serving like over 100, the last time I checked, well over 100 internal stakeholder teams. And the additional thing that is super important from the strategic perspective that kind of has a little bit more to do with this narrow definition of ROI that is money related, right? These engines also allow us to do things that would have been very difficult some time ago, because we can essentially plug them into our analytical engines, right? And they help us find patterns in multilingual feedback from our customers about the real quality of our content. I know that some localizers, some translators will not like what I'm going to say, right? But essentially, when I say real quality, I mean the part of quality that really bugs the customer, right? And not necessarily a comma that's missing somewhere, although that is and could be important for some customers, right? So we're able to find that feedback. We're able to find patterns, what that allows us, right, is that it helps us focus. We have these resources. We can focus. We can prioritize. We can fix things that really bother the customers, instead of just applying our resources like peanut buttering, spreading too thin over the sort of all the entire area of our operations. And it's in fact this last area, analytics, is where I see the broadest field, I guess, for the most creative collaboration between human linguists and NMT in the coming years, right? NMT will be getting better at translating standard content, and there will be less and less room there for the translators. It's just a fact of life. There is nothing we can do to change that, but it gives back in return, right? It gives back because whatever patterns it finds, whatever suggestions it makes, these need to be verified by humans. NMT, any AI at this stage is, sorry, I'll be very blunt, too stupid or too limited currently to actually understand what's behind the feedback, right? To actually understand the gist of what is communicated. That's where we need humans. That's where we need their suggestions. That's where we need their work and expert knowledge. So that would be mostly it from my side, I guess. Back to yourselves.
Fascinating. Thank you. Thank you, Michał. Thank you, Faye. Two fascinating journeys. As expected, when I invited you, I knew that you would have a really cool story to tell. Don't want to throw you under the bus, but I wanted to ask you one thing, Michał. I took a note on something that you said about TM matching. So I'm sure that both of you are aware of this. There has been a lot of research back and forth about when to apply MT to reach thresholds within TM matching. Some would say we should apply it below 74%. Others say we should apply it under 70%. You mentioned the concept, which is not good enough TM matching, which is, I'm sure that's quantifiable for both of you. But are you in liberty of disclosing which threshold of TM matching you apply MT or
Yeah.
not? I totally understand.
Yeah, I don't think it's any big secret, right? Anything below 80%, we apply an MT on.
Well, that's fascinating.
And again, anything I say, apart from all this secret, personal, classified information that we should not really be making available outside of the company or anything like that.
And how about yourself?
Yeah, we don't have a fixed baseline for applying the MT, and it is basically on when the linguists are working on the content and it would be kind of a lessons learned in progress. You know, where is the best threshold, where to apply MT based on the linguist. End of the day, it's our linguists that are doing the heavy lifting in our content translation, and I guess it can be depending on you know, different languages as well. Some languages, it might not be, you know, so relevant with, you know, a fixed reference, but some languages might be more flexible, higher or lower than the recommended threshold. So yeah, we don't really have like a fixed baseline for that.
And Faye, that's actually a good remark, because we sometimes do have to make an exception, right, from that 80%, but the general rule is 80%.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the higher kind of range is very much similar, but there is no kind of fixed rule to say, okay, only 80% to everyone, every language, or 75 to everyone, every language. So yeah, and I guess we need to kind of respect the practice side as well, because end of the day, we are not the editors, and it's our linguists are helping us doing the heavy lifting of the content translation.
That is fascinating. I mean, you mentioned one thing, language dependency. How about content dependency, different content types? Would you consider applying different content to different content types, different threshold levels of when to apply MT?
Currently, our content type, it is quite kind of consistent on transactional content. So it is not really a big concern for us. But I don't know, what about Michal? What's your thoughts on this?
I would say it's consistent as well, but of course we use different engines for the different content types. But I guess that goes without saying, right? Yeah.
I have some questions for the two of you regarding you know, your own journey and how things have evolved. Having present that transition quality is sort of a dynamic concept. It's a moving target that requires a lot of adjusting. How do you measure it? Which framework would you use? Is it a standard one? Is it a non-standard one? Did you adjust the way you measure linguistic quality to post-editing machine translated content, or raw machine translation applied?
I think for us, because we're kind of in this e-commerce world, and you know, purely linguistic metrics wouldn't make a lot of sense in terms of our kind of thresholders in the business. So we interpret some linguistic metrics into more commercial contexts. So for example, you know, we talk about turnaround time in the linguistic world, but how does that translate into time to market, for example, or being part of the lead time for your product to be on the market and customer facing? And, you know, we talk about quality, you know, talk about error rates, and how do we interpret that into a commercial background, into a commercial context. I think this would be, you know, making the communication to the internal business stakeholders easier. And, you know, with you know, our partner, linguistic partners, you know, we can still use those linguistic metrics, because that would mean we're using the same language in the same world. So, and I guess it's just kind of slight change in the mindset. How do we interpret some linguistic metrics that doesn't resonate so much into the business world, into a business language? So.
Right. So, yeah. So for me, I'm sorry, I will not be able to go into a lot of details on this. However, right, like I've already said, or maybe I'll start with this. We used to apply, of course, in the past, as probably most of the localization teams out there, right, purely linguistic criteria to what we delivered in the terms of, you know, consistency, grammar, and so on and so forth, right? However, for some time now, we have tried applying these analytics that I've mentioned, right? That kind of trying to find what it is that our customers actually are telling us about our content and what it is that bothers them, and trying to basically focus our impact on that. Now, the way we mitigate the purely linguistic quality issues is by having a very specific vendor model, right? in which we give our vendors relatively a lot of time and relatively good rates compared to the other companies on the market, right? So that they have both the time and the motivation to actually focus on delivering the right stuff from the get-go, rather than having to scramble and deliver something very quickly at crazy schedules and at very, very low cost, which is not very quality centric, I would say. Yeah.
Good. Thanks for sharing that, Michał. I had a question that I think both of you have replied to brilliantly, which would be, and you've shared a lot of light about different dimensions through which the your own machine translation program has affected positively your overall localization program. I think both of you in different parts of your explanation have shown that. And so I would like to finalize with a question, our panel today, by saying that it's been an absolute pleasure having you here, exchanging these ideas about machine translation. But I would like to ask you both a question around company corporate culture. So how did your company's corporate culture influence deploying machine translation across the organization with so many different use cases? Was the organization suspicious? Was it sort of an agnostic, or was it pro or completely surrendered and pro machine translation? I don't know. Perhaps Michał, we can start by you now.
Yeah, I mean, I've probably talked about the biggest aspect of the corporate culture already, right? Which is it's ingrained in our mission to basically go as wide as possible with the languages, with the customers that we can serve, right? So that has definitely impacted us, because probably some of the localization decisions would have been made differently had they been purely money driven, right? Now, as for example, whether there were stakeholders who were less or more suspicious, of course, you always have that, right? Some people just embrace it wholly. Some of them have good knowledge about localization, which is, you can be really surprised, right? And some of them stress over and over again that they don't want MT, they don't want to risk quality and similar comments. And I guess in these cases, it's, ultimately, vast majority of our stakeholders, once they understood how the process is applied, once they understood that there is post-editing that is happening, once they understood that a human, and a very well qualified human, that looks at every string, right, that NMT processes, vast majority of the stakeholders have agreed, and basically, I think the trust is there now.
Yeah, I think, Michał, you just captured a really, really important point about understanding. Once they understand, but only after they understand. This is kind of the educational piece that we are, kind of responsible for, educating our stakeholders, the right knowledge and the right evaluation, the right assessment of the machine translation and what it can actually bring to be fit for purpose. So I guess regardless of the culture of the organization, I've seen personally, attitudes on both ends. Some are super, super suspicious. We don't want machine translation at all. On the other end, let's use machine translation fully. So I've seen both attitudes across different organizations, but end of the day, it is the lack of understanding about machine translation that is giving too much confidence and too little confidence about machine translation. So end of the day, it is really the education that we need to have with our stakeholders and to show them the real value and, demonstrate the approach, because we are the experts in these areas, so that, got the universal buy-in from the business, that people are comfortable with what we're offering and making sure that it's fit for purpose as well.
Good point. Very
Very, very good point. It's I've been saying this, it's empty and humans, not empty versus humans. I think that the main education point that we even in our industry, and we're experts, as you mentioned, Faye, we still have trouble communicating that across all sides, so you hear linguists saying it's empty, it's not good, it's going to take our job. Well, no, it's not. Anyway, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very, very much for accepting the challenge and the invitation. I think this concludes our session. It's been great having you here, and wishing you, the best in the world, and let the best in the world also happen to us in the next weeks or days or hours. Okay, thank you, and have a fantastic rest of the day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for
Thank you.
having me. Lovely discussion.
Thank you for having me.